Welcome to the NOSR Webs podcast. Today we're diving deep into the world of Bitcoin mining. You won't need a pickaxe though, just a healthy dose of curiosity. And before we dig in, don't forget to visit the links in the description below for some amazing offers.
Offers you won't want to miss.
You got that right. So let's talk Bitcoin. Remember when China was the king of the mining game?
Wasn't that long ago. They were mining over 65% of all Bitcoin.
It's like the whole landscape has shifted though.
Absolutely.
Now the US is on top with 38% of the global hash rate as of early 2024.
Big change.
For those just joining us, can you give us a quick rundown on what Bitcoin mining actually is and why location matters so much?
Well, think of it as a giant digital accounting ledger. We call it the blockchain. Every single transaction needs to be verified and recorded.
Oh, a lot of data.
Exactly. And miners are the ones doing the verifying. They use their computers to solve complex mathematical problems. Whoever solves the problem first gets to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain.
And they get rewarded with Bitcoin.
You got it. It's a very lucrative competition. And location matters because all that computing power requires a ton of electricity.
So miners are looking for the cheapest electricity they can find.
Exactly. They want to maximize their profits. That's where hash rate comes in. It's basically a measure of the total computing power dedicated to mining Bitcoin.
So the higher the hash rate, the more secure the network.
Precisely. And countries with a bigger chunk of the global hash rate have more influence.
It's all about power.
You could say that to increase their chances of winning those Bitcoin rewards, miners often join forces in mining pools.
Like a team effort.
Exactly. They combine their computing power to increase their odds of solving those complex math problems.
Smart strategy. Now, if we look at the current mining map, it's clear that China's dominance has faded.
Definitely.
Besides the US, we have Kazakhstan with about 11% of the global hash rate, then Russia with 7.4%, and Canada's right behind them with 6.9%.
It's a global game now.
It really is.
Wow.
But what's driving this shift? Why are miners flocking to these specific locations?
Two main factors: energy costs and government regulations. They're the twin forces shaping the destiny of Bitcoin mining.
Okay, let's start with energy. I have a feeling this is where it gets really interesting.
It does. Energy is the lifeblood of Bitcoin mining. Miners are constantly on the hunt for the cheapest kilowatt hours they can get.
They're like digital nomads, always on the move.
In a way, yeah. And the price differences can be pretty surprising.
Like, how much are we talking?
Well, in the US, the average cost per kilowatt hour is somewhere between 8 and 12 cents. Not bad.
But I bet there are cheaper places.
You bet. Kazakhstan, for instance, has an average cost of just 5 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour.
Wow.
And Russia comes in even lower at 4 to 7 cents.
So that's why everyone's heading over there.
Pretty much. It's all about maximizing those profit margins.
Makes sense. But it's not just about the price tag, right? The type of energy source also matters.
Absolutely. Different countries rely on different energy sources. Take Texas, for example. They have a diverse mix with natural gas and wind power playing big roles.
Texas doing what they do best, going big. But what about places like Kazakhstan? I've heard they rely heavily on coal.
They do, which raises some environmental concerns. Then you have Russia with its access to hydroelectric and natural gas resources, so it's a mixed bag when it comes to sustainability.
A lot to consider. It seems like for some miners, the bottom line comes before environmental concerns. What do you think about the pros and cons of relying on different energy sources for Bitcoin mining? Is there a path to greener mining, or is it just a race to the bottom?
That's a tough question. It's a complex issue with a lot of factors to consider. It's a hot topic within the industry itself. But before we get into that, we need to talk about the other big force shaping the Bitcoin mining map: government regulations.
Ah, yes, the regulatory landscape. Things can get pretty interesting there. I imagine different governments have wildly different views on Bitcoin mining. Some welcoming it with open arms, others slamming the door shut.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a global tug-of-war with miners caught in the middle. Welcome back to the NOSR Webs podcast. Before we dive into the regulatory maze, we were talking about how miners are always on the hunt for the cheapest energy.
It's a global scavenger hunt with some pretty interesting results. Like, who are the biggest players when it comes to rolling out the red carpet for miners?
Well, Texas has been a front runner. They've been really proactive with those grid integration policies, making it easier for large-scale mining operations.
So they're not just welcoming miners, they're making it easy for them.
Exactly. Kazakhstan's also been pretty welcoming. They introduced a new licensing framework for miners back in early 2023.
Trying to bring some order to the chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Create a more structured and regulated environment. And then you have countries like Georgia. They're really sweetening the deal with a 10% corporate tax rate for mining operations.
Now that's an incentive I can get behind.
Right. It's a pretty tempting offer. Even Canada's starting to warm up to the idea. Manitoba had a temporary moratorium on new mining projects. But they lifted it, and now they're requiring miners to sign energy purchase agreements.
So a more stable and predictable energy supply.
Exactly. They're realizing that there are some real economic benefits to hosting these digital gold diggers.
It's like a modern-day gold rush.
Yeah.
But instead of pickaxes and shovels, it's all about computing power. But I know it's not all smooth sailing. Some governments are taking a much tougher stance.
Oh, absolutely. China's 2021 ban on all mining activities was a huge turning point.
Talk about shaking things up.
It really did. It sent shockwaves through the entire industry, and it triggered that mass exodus of miners we talked about earlier. China's not alone, though. Kosovo, facing its own energy challenges, also decided to ban mining. They're putting their own energy security first.
Understandable, given the current global energy landscape.
Right. And then you have places like Iran. They're taking a more flexible approach with those seasonal restrictions on mining. It depends on how much strain is on their power grid.
So it's like a mining timeshare.
Exactly. Miners can only operate when there's enough electricity to go around. It's a delicate balancing act for sure.
It seems like governments worldwide are realizing that they can't ignore Bitcoin mining anymore.
It's not going away anytime soon, that's for sure.
It's here to stay. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. The environmental impact of Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, it's no secret that Bitcoin mining uses a lot of energy. We're talking roughly 141 terawatts annually. But the interesting thing is that the narrative surrounding Bitcoin mining in the environment is starting to change.
Really? How so?
Well, the sources of that energy are becoming more diverse, and in a lot of cases, more sustainable.
Wait a minute. Are you saying there's a green side to Bitcoin mining?
It might sound surprising, but the numbers don't lie. A significant portion of global Bitcoin mining, about 58.9% now, relies on sustainable energy sources.
That's way more than I expected. I'm actually impressed.
It's a trend that's been gaining momentum. Hydroelectric power is leading the way. It accounts for 33.7% of the energy used in Bitcoin mining.
So those mining farms we see next to those rushing rivers in Norway and Sweden, it's not just for the scenery.
Exactly. They're harnessing the power of nature. It's not just hydro, though. Solar and wind energy are also playing a role. They contribute a combined 15.2%.
That's great to hear. But what about places like Texas, where they have all that natural gas? Is that considered sustainable?
That's a bit of a gray area. Natural gas is often seen as a cleaner alternative to coal, but it's still a fossil fuel. The good news is that Texas is increasing its use of wind and solar power, so that's helping to shift things in a more sustainable direction.
So it sounds like the industry is at least trying to embrace renewables.
There's definitely a push in that direction. I think it's a combination of genuine concern for the environment. Public image also plays a role.
Like a bit of greenwashing.
Maybe a little. But there are also practical reasons. Renewable energy is becoming more cost competitive as technology improves. And in some cases, using renewables can give miners access to tax breaks or other financial incentives.
It's a win-win situation. They can reduce their environmental impact and save some money at the same time.
Exactly. But the question remains, is green Bitcoin mining truly achievable, or is it just clever marketing?
It's a good question. The shift towards renewables is definitely positive, but there's still a long way to go. The industry needs to keep investing in renewable energy infrastructure, and they need to be more transparent about where they're getting their energy from.
Transparency is key. It's hard to know how sustainable an operation really is if you don't know where their energy is coming from.
Right. Consumers want to know that the Bitcoin they're using is being mined responsibly. But beyond the environmental impact, there's another important aspect to consider: the social and economic impact of Bitcoin mining on communities around the world. Welcome back to the NOSR Webs podcast. So we've talked about the energy and the regulations surrounding Bitcoin mining, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about the human side of things. How is all of this affecting people around the world?
It's a great question. And the answer is, as you might expect, pretty complex. Bitcoin mining can have both positive and negative impacts on communities. It creates opportunities, but it also comes with challenges.
Let's start with the good stuff. I've heard stories about Bitcoin mining bringing new life to struggling rural communities, creating jobs and bringing in investments.
It's true. In some cases, it can be a real game changer when a mining operation sets up shop. It creates a ripple effect throughout the local economy. There's a sudden need for construction workers, maintenance crews, security personnel, logistics support, you name it.
It's like a modern-day gold rush, but with a digital twist.
Exactly. And for some towns that have been hit hard by the decline of traditional industries, this can be a lifeline. It brings in much-needed tax revenue, helps fund infrastructure improvements, like better roads or faster internet, and it can even attract new businesses to the area.
So it's revitalizing these communities while also helping the Bitcoin network grow.
Right.
But I'm guessing it's not all sunshine and roses.
Unfortunately, no. One of the big concerns is the potential for conflict over resources, especially energy and water. As these mining operations get bigger, their demand for power and cooling can put a real strain on local infrastructure,
Leading to some tension with residents and other businesses.
Exactly. And if mining companies aren't transparent about their operations and don't engage with the community in a meaningful way, it can lead to resentment and distrust.
So they need to be good neighbors, not just come in, take what they need and leave.
Absolutely. They need to work with the community, address their concerns, and make sure the benefits are shared fairly. And that brings us to another important consideration: environmental justice.
We've talked about the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining in general. But what does environmental justice mean in this context?
It's about recognizing that the environmental costs and benefits of something like Bitcoin mining aren't always distributed equally. Some communities might end up shouldering a bigger share of the negative consequences, like noise pollution, air pollution, or water contamination from the mining operations.
So it's possible that a mining operation could be located in a lower-income community, exposing residents to environmental hazards, while the profits go to investors and company executives who live far away.
That's the kind of situation that can lead to social unrest and resentment. It highlights the need for fair and equitable policies and regulations to make sure that mining is done responsibly and that the benefits are shared by everyone involved.
So it's not just about whether Bitcoin mining is good or bad for the environment. It's about who benefits and who pays the price.
Exactly. And it's a conversation that needs to happen at all levels, from local communities to national governments to international organizations.
We've certainly covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It's clear that Bitcoin mining is a powerful force that's changing the world in ways we're only just beginning to understand.
It's already having a huge impact on the global economy, the energy landscape, and the lives of people all over the planet. And that impact is only going to grow in the years to come.
So what's the key takeaway message for our listeners today? What should they keep in mind as they try to make sense of this complex and rapidly changing world?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed and be critical of the information you come across. Don't just buy into the hype or the fear-mongering. Do your own research, ask questions, and form your own opinions based on the facts.
Great advice. And remember, we all have a role to play in shaping the future of Bitcoin mining. Whether you're a consumer, an investor, or just a concerned citizen, the choices we make today can influence the direction this industry takes. We have the power to demand transparency, accountability, and sustainability from the companies involved.
I couldn't agree more. The future of Bitcoin mining isn't set in stone. It will be shaped by the decisions we make collectively.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of Bitcoin mining. It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of this exciting and ever-changing landscape. Don't forget to check out those links in the description below for some amazing offers. And until next time, stay curious.